Hello and welcome to Das Reboot, the show about remakes, reboots, and adaptions. My name's Steven Jacoby.
I'm Zachary Lyle.
And we're about to get sweet today. Sweet and maybe salty?
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Overall, it's going to be scrumdiddlyumptious, that's for sure.
Indubitably. We're reviewing the films Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Since Gene Wilder passed away a couple of weeks ago, we are honoring him as well.
Absolutely. True talent to the industry.
Indubitably.
He's done so many great things, not only Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but he's got his team up with Richard Pryor and doing movies like Stir Crazy, Hear No Evil, See No Evil.
Blazing Saddles.
Well, that wasn't with Richard Pryor, but that was still
yeah.
that was still a decent movie.
Still.
Young Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. I love that. I haven't seen it in forever, and I can't say I love it, so...
It's one of those movies that I have to revisit at least once a year.
Pretty much.
I'm one of those Mel Brooks fans where I have to go through my entire collection at least once per year.
It's probably a good idea.
Yes. It's always good to stay fresh on it.
Very fresh. Fresh and so clean. Anyways, let's dive into the meat. And let's start off with Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which came out in 1971. Zach, take us away.
Indeed. 1971, we have Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Director is Mel Stewart. Writer is Roald Dahl, who happened to do the screenplay and the book. We also have it starring Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka, Jack Albertson as Grandpa Joe, Peter Ostrom as Charlie. I could mention the adults, but the kids were more of the focus in this movie, so we'll go with Julie Dawn Cole as Veruca Salt, Denise Nickerson as Violet Beauregard, Paris Themin as Mike TV, and Michael Ballner as Augustus Gloop.
Augustus, I love that name.
Yes, it rolls off the tongue so well.
I had a roommate named Gus, and his full name was Augustus.
I had a friend back all the way back in elementary school whose name is Gus, and right now he's actually in the television business.
Wow.
He's a little bit more behind the scenes as far as I can remember, but real great guy. And I don't see him as much as I should.
Sometimes friendships don't last.
True. Very true. The storyline goes, the world is astounded when Willy Wonka, for years a recluse in his factory, announces that 5 lucky people will be given a tour of the factory, shown all the secrets of his amazing candy, and one will win a lifetime supply of Wonka chocolate. Nobody wants the prize more than young Charlie, but as his family is so poor that buying even one chocolate bar is a treat, buying enough bars to find one of the 5 golden tickets is unlikely in the extreme. But in Movieland, magic can happen.
Indubitably.
Charlie, along with 4 somewhat odious other children, get the chance of a lifetime and a tour of the factory. Along the way, mild disasters befall each of the odious children. But can Charlie beat the odds and grab the brass ring?
We sure hope so.
I didn't think this was tied into Lord of the Rings so much with the brass ring, you know?
We all want that ring. That ring is a metaphorical thing that we all want. But a very, very physical thing for most women.
Is that the brass ring to the golden showers? That's why you get the golden ticket, right?
Oh, God. This just got dirty really quick.
Really dirty,
4
really
minutes
quick. Biggest thing about this is that Gene Wilder was absolutely the person that they saw being Willy Wonka for this movie.
How could he not? I mean, he's like the face of Willy Wonka that we all know as kids.
Well, I mean, he's the face, but you know, there could have been other people that went out for the movie, which there absolutely was. But according to director Mel Stewart, as soon as Gene Wilder walked into the audition, he knew, before he had even uttered a single word, that he had found his Willy Wonka. The audition convinced him even further, So when Wilder finished and left the room, Stewart actually chased him down the hallway, cut him off at the elevator bank, grabbed his arm, and told him, "You're doing this picture, no two ways about it. You are Willy Wonka." And this, of course, upset the producer, David L. Wolper, because he hadn't yet had a chance to negotiate terms and negotiate a fee with Wilder.
Could say he went over his helmet.
A little bit. But after reading the script, Gene Wilder actually said he would take the role of Willy Wonka under one condition. He wanted to be allowed to limp, and then suddenly somersault in the scene when he first meets the children.
What?
Yeah, he apparently wrote that in because when he was asked why he wants Wonka to be able to do this, he said, "From that time on, no one will know if I'm lying or telling the truth."
Oh, yeah, that's a good magic trick.
It's a good magic trick, especially when you're working with kids or when you're trying to bring something to kids.
Right.
The director asked if he said no, would Gene Wilder do the picture? Or would it mean, if he said no, would it mean that Gene Wilder would not do the picture? And Gene Wilder said, "I'm afraid that's the truth." So much going on with this movie, though.
Oh, yeah.
You have all these elaborate sceneries.
Psychedelic.
A little bit psychedelic.
Very psychedelic,
Very psychedelic in some of the scenery.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, you have in the tunnel movie, you have the psychedelic face of Wallen Green, friend of director Mel Stewart and screenwriter of The Wild Bunch. According to Stewart's memoirs, Green is the only person who would agree to let a centipede crawl on his face for the sake of a children's film.
Why? It's more of a horror film for me.
It's one of those things where you had to remember that this was the psychedelic, scary tunnel that's supposed to sit here and get the kids all frightened and riled up and worried about their well-being.
It's a good anti-drug message.
And as compared to the reboot here, it's actually definitely more heart-pounding for me. You watch the newer one, and I'm kind of sitting here going, that would actually be a great amusement park ride.
True.
It didn't really seem so scary.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that really hits you in the childhood. The Chocolate River was actually made from 150,000 gallons of water, real chocolate, and cream. But because of the cream, it began to spoil. And by the end of the filming, it smelled horrendous.
I can imagine. Just smelling bad milk, in a jug is bad enough. Having an entire, factory floor smelling like that. It'll be like me going back to Boy Scout camp all over again, the entire camp getting sick, and then just one night, everyone just puking their guts out. That's what it would be like all over again.
There's just so much. The special effects back in the day were so flawed. You had the spoiling river here. In the Wonka Wash car scene, the foam used to spurt out was compiled from basic fire extinguishers. But what was unknown to the cast and crew was that the foam itself was potent skin irritant.
Ooh.
Yeah, so after they shot the scene, the actors were left in considerable discomfort when their skin puffed up and required several days to receive medical treatment and recovery.
My eyes are on fire! I'm burning!
I just can't. That's one of those things where it's just like, wow, what compelled them to do that?
People could have died in the making of this film.
Exactly. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, you know what? We could do this sort of foam with soap and, have it be somewhat discomforting, but
we're going balls out with this one.
Let's do the fire extinguisher. Yeah. It gets more bubbly. All sorts of stuff happening in this movie. Most of it was shot in Munich, Germany, but the producers had to go outside of Germany to recruit enough little people to play the Oompa Loompas. And this is, of course, because one of the many tragic legacies of the Nazi era.
Because...
Well, the Nazis were very big into the ideal form
master
of man.
race.
Master race, exactly. So they tended to find deformities as abominations.
So little people is one of those deformities, unfortunately, according to the Nazis.
Yes.
Hassles.
They did have some German little people for this movie, but for the most part they had to seek elsewhere. And these little people, they knew how to party. I'm telling you, there's many a story of them going out afterwards, like all loading up into a limo, and just going out, hitting the town, partying. A lot of them didn't speak English either. So it was one of those things where, like, if you watch the movie, you can see that they're not quite synced up to the singing going on.
Right.
And that's because they
don't speak English.
No speak of English.
I bet it was Oktoberfest anywhere they went, though. I want to go to there.
Yes. Speaking of special effects issues, Julie Dawn Cole did not know that the rock in the chocolate room she was dropping onto the to smash the watermelon-sized chocolate egg was real. Yeah, and that ended up with her badly cutting her left knee because the rock fell onto it. If you watch carefully in the first scene with the egg, you can see her left stocking is bloody.
Yeah, I remember noticing that, actually.
And she still has a scar on her knee from that injury.
This movie has scarred her for life.
Yeah.
I heard she had, like, a problem with her hair as well. Like, throughout the movie, the filmmakers, I don't know if they kept, like, her hair kept on, like, getting burned, and so she had, like, split ends, and so they had to, like, chop her hair off where the split ends were. She just didn't have a good time with this film.
It was one of those, a lot of the actors had issues with this.
It seems such a magical place, this chocolate factory.
A magical place, but yet a scary place to be at the same time.
Yep.
You've, of course, got the boat ride sequence. It was so convincing that it frightened some of the other actors, including Denise Nickerson. They all actually thought that Gene Wilder was really going mad from being in the tunnel. And that's just the way he was acting, you know?
Yeah.
He's one of those guys
really getting into it.
Well, he can take it seriously, and then all of a sudden he can throw it over the top.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things that makes him one of the great actors.
He would have made a good Joker.
He would have. Joker, I could have seen him even playing up a Riddler role.
Mm-hmm. Or even Mad Hatter.
Oh,
they had
good point.
that
Mad Hatter
back in the day.
Yeah, that's correct. Denise Nickerson did not want to do the nose-picking bit because she had a crush on Peter Ostrom and didn't want to embarrass herself.
Aww.
Yeah, these poor kids. Speaking of poor kids, towards the beginning of the movie, when they're doing the Candyman song, you have Bill going from the soda pump, trying to come out from behind the counter. He flips up that counter. And most people who've seen, like, movie flub videos have seen this, but there's a girl that ends up getting knocked on the chin.
Oops.
With that counter coming up, which just goes to show you need to make sure you are on your mark.
Yep. Do your shit, or else you're gonna get shit.
Exactly. Peter Ostrom made no other films.
Really?
This was his one and only.
Only film, huh?
He turned down a 5-picture contract because he didn't want to make acting his profession.
Oh, psh. What's he do now?
Well, he's a veterinarian.
Oh, okay. That's a noble cause, I guess. It's kind of like Jack Gleason from Game of Thrones, who plays this god-awful kid turned king. You know, and he's such a bad guy. But in real life, Jack Gleason's a really humble and nice person, and he actually quit acting to, like, pursue humanitarian stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fun fact that all of the children in this movie, except for Julie Dawn Cole, don't act. Don't act anymore. Julie Dawn Cole is the only one that decided to keep pursuing acting.
Willy Wonka ruined their lives.
I don't know about ruined it, but it definitely left a mark.
Sure did.
We also have the interesting fact that Bill, the candy store owner, was actually a role that was pursued by Sammy Davis Jr.
Really?
Yeah.
Who? He was in Ocean's 11.
He was in Ocean's 11. The
original.
The number version.
Yeah, the number version.
The number version. But the filmmakers deemed it as too kitschy, and they declined it. And furthermore, director Mel Stewart didn't like the idea because he felt that the presence of a big star in the candy store scene would actually break the reality of the movie.
Oh.
But nevertheless, the Candyman was actually a big part of Sammy Davis Jr.'s show for many years.
Huh. That's interesting.
It's happening, man.
It's one cool cat.
It's definitely happening.
That was a great impression, especially with your facial expression.
You have to get the eye just right.
Yeah. Oh, Candyman.
Oh, Candyman. I could go on for days about this movie, but I know we want to keep this a relatively short episode.
Sure. Shall we go into the more recent 2005 edition?
Let's go ahead and push on.
All right, pushing on. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which came out in 2005. The story of it goes, a cryptic factory owner named Willy Wonka decides to let 5 children tour his chocolate factory via 5 golden tickets found in select chocolate bars. One of these selected is a young boy named Charlie Bucket. Charlie, who is accompanied with his grandfather, goes to tour the factory, which is not your typical run-of-the-mill workplace. There, Charlie goes on an amazing experience with Willy Wonka, as well as dealing with 4 other spoiled brats throughout the tour. As each one succumbs to their own temptations, each one is eliminated then from the tour, leaving only Charlie, where he is then given the grand prize, Wonka's successor to owning the factory.
That's
Wonkers.
That's Wonker, not Wankers.
Wankers. Oh my god.
Yeah, you don't want to sit there and wrap your mouth around Wankers chocolate.
That is so disturbing and disgusting, and I love it. The production company behind it is Warner Brothers. The production company behind this film is Warner Brothers, and is directed by good old Tim Burton. Woo! Who we know from Batman, Edward Scissorhands, and so much more good stuff.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Oh yeah, that too. The film stars Johnny Depp as Willy Wonka, Freddie Highmore as Charlie Bucket, who we all know from August Rush.
August Rush, yep. Or Bates.
Yep.
Bates Motel. Mm-hmm. He's done a lot of work.
Yep.
For such a young age.
Also stars David Kelly as Grandpa Joe, Helena Bonham Carter as Mrs. Bucket, Noah Taylor, Missy Pyle, James Fox, and a whole bunch of others, including Christopher Lee, who we all know as Count Dooku from Star Wars and Dracula.
That's right.
Yeah, good old Christopher Lee. The original book and was written by Roald Dahl, which we established. Mm-hmm. He also helped write this version of the movie, as well as John August, who was mostly in charge of the screenplay. Of course, always teaming up with Tim Burton in the music department is Danny Elfman. He did stuff with Tim Burton, like Batman and Beetlejuice and
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Edward Scissorhands. Yep. So
it's one of those things where it's a good teaming.
yeah,
It's a very good teaming, especially if you want that sort of campy sound behind everything.
oh yeah. Well, it's got this. It's campy, but it's also very present and big band sound.
It's kind of like a childlike wonderment about it.
Yeah.
I guess you could say.
It's goofy too.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
It's got lots of personality.
His one band, Oingo Boingo, back in the late 80s and early 90s, it's more kind of a serious tone, especially with one song called I can't remember it. Can't remember the song it's but it is.
This is why we do research before the show.
Yeah, brain fart, excuse me. Unlike the first film, all the Oompa Loompas were played by one actor named Deep Roy. And he acted all the parts, and they just chopped him in to all the scenes as multiple Oompa Loompas.
He probably got paid the big bucks for that too, didn't he?
Oh, well, yeah, because he repeated so many movements several hundred times. His salary was raised to $1 million flat.
Bravo.
Bravo. Deep Roy. The lyrics to some of the musical numbers in this movie was actually written by Roald Dahl himself.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure if they were in the original book at all. That's the only thing I did not research.
Here I get all my pronunciations down, and now...
Shut up.
now we have information missing.
Yeah, right. Johnny Depp once stated in an interview that he based Willy Wonka's performance how he would picture George W. Bush being stoned. Good old W being stoned.
I don't think it's got enough of that Texas drawl on it.
No, he's like too happy and too...
He's just a little too smiley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very smiley. It's kind of disturbing at times. This movie marks the 5th collaboration of Tim Burton and Johnny Depp working together in a span of 15 years. So you can tell that they're the dynamic duo. And, of course, Danny Elfman's in there, and Tim Burton's wife, Helena Bonham Carter.
Mm-hmm.
So
this was also not the first film that Johnny Depp and Freddie Highmore had acted in together.
What was the first?
Finding Neverland, back in 2004.
Oh my god, he was in that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Why did...
And Johnny Depp was actually so impressed by Freddie Highmore's performance that he recommended Tim Burton observe him for the role of Charlie Bucket.
Well, there you go. Roald Dahl, he would have been 100 had he still been living to this day.
Mm-hmm.
His birthday passed either last week or a couple weeks ago. I can't remember. I put it up on our Twitter site. But Roald Dahl is famous for other novels such as The BFG, The Fantastic Mr. Fox, James and the Giant Peach. And
that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Roald Dahl was also criticized for hating Jewish people, unfortunately. It's not really confirmed, but it's kind of a bad thing.
Is this why they filmed in Germany? For the original?
Wow, that kind of blows my mind now. They filmed it in Germany, and they hired German... Huh. That's very disturbing.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I think one of the more disturbing things about this is how many people were considered for the role of Willy Wonka in this movie.
That's right. If I can find those facts, I'll tell you.
Or I have them right here.
How many were considered for the role?
Oh, you want me to count, actually? 2, 4, 6...
Well,
8,
let's just list
10.
them. Jim Carrey.
Yep.
Adam Sandler, Steve Martin, Robin Williams, Christopher Walken.
Wow.
Nicolas Cage, Will Smith. Brad Pitt. Mike Myers, Ben Stiller, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Do you smell what Willy Wonka's cooking?
I really don't want to. Bill Murray, Leslie Nielsen, Patrick Stewart. Make it show. John Cleese, Eric Idle, Michael Palin,
Rowan Atkinson,
Robert De Niro, and Michael Keaton. Now, I can actually see Michael Keaton because he played Beetlejuice.
Right.
And he's got that...
He's got that fine line of sitting there being able to act like a normal human being, but then also pushing it over the top into crazy town.
Yeah. Above all, or below all those, one person who was not considered but really wanted the part very, very badly was Marilyn Manson.
Oh my gosh. No. We don't want
to use Willy Wonka.
I know sweet dreams are made of this, but...
Yep, not sweet enough.
No.
Unfortunately. Well, to audition for the part of the Oompa Loompas, Deep Roy danced and lip-synced to the song Is Not Unusual by Tom Jones. Now, here's the thing. I wonder if he did the Carlton dance.
Oh, my gosh. That would have been stinking hilarious.
I wonder if that clip exists somewhere. Probably doesn't do the Carlton dance, but that would be great.
It would be.
It would be awesome. I would have loved that. Love to see Deep Roy. I love that name, Deep Roy.
It's got so much power behind it.
Yeah, for such a very astute man.
Mm-hmm. You have to remember, this is also the second chocolate-based movie that Johnny Depp starred in. He was in Chocolat back in 2000.
I've never seen that, actually.
I'll admit I haven't either. It's a fun fact.
It's a very, very fun fact. But this movie's got a lot going on for it, but not as much as like the original as far as like its lore, you know, with the Oompa Loompas coming from Germany. And overall, I thought it was a great homage to the original. And it followed the book a lot more closely in this one than it did with the Gene Wilder one. Because... Like in the end of the original, Willy Wonka divulges that Charlie's the heir to the chocolate factory, and that's where the movie kind of ends. And Charlie's just like filled with wonderment, like this is all mine stuff. The end of this film, Willy Wonka tells Charlie, the factory is yours, but because Charlie finds out that Willy Wonka didn't have a great relation with his father, refuses to accept the role of taking over the chocolate factory and tells Willy that he needs to,
Well, it's more so due to the fact that not so much that Willy Wonka had such a jaded relationship with his father, but it's because that Willy Wonka said that it would only be Charlie moving in there.
Right.
He couldn't bring his family.
He couldn't bring his family. Yeah, exactly.
And he didn't want to sacrifice his family.
Mm-hmm.
That's so darn touching.
That little kid, Freddie Highmore. He really has you being touched right in the cockles of your heart.
Yes.
Very, very.
You just wanted to say cockles.
I had to. Cock. Yeah. Anyways.
C-H phlegm.
That's a Jeff Dunham reference, BTW. Anyway, shall we do...
spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we haven't done that up to this point yet.
I know, right? Oops.
Oh, well.
Sound effects department's probably really depressed about that right now.
Well, it's one of those things that we're actually just very, very concerned if anyone hasn't seen one of these movies.
Indubitably. Shall we take a look at the numbers for both films now?
Let's go ahead and push on.
All right, pushing on. Numbers. Budgets. 1971 film had a budget of $2.9 million, which is a lot even for the day. Inflation otherwise included and stuff. Budget for the 2005 version, 150 million bones. As far as films grossing, 1971 version had a grossing of $4 million, so they profited $1.1 million. The 2005 edition had 206 million gross, which is about 56 million more than their budget. So percentage-wise, they kind of... Let's see. Well, I guess the 2005 made a third more than the original. The original made like a fourth more.
As far as the overall.
Yeah, as far as the overall budgets go. And grossings. The ratings for each movie. IMDb rating, 1971 has a 7.8 out of 10 stars. The 2005 version has a 6.7 out of 10 stars. So,
pretty close.
Pretty close, but no cigar. Rotten Tomatoes rating for 1971 version, 89% fresh rating.
So fresh and so clean.
So fresh and so clean. 2005 edition has an 83% fresh rating. So, both did pretty well. Both did pretty well. And you can really count on the tomato meter. Some people can't. Some people even...
Well, we had questions with it with our last episode, I do believe.
Yeah, for Red Dawn.
Yes.
Oops. But yeah, as far as the ratings go...
It's really all in the eye of the beholder.
It really is, I guess. With that being said, shall we call the question?
Sound the horns. It is time for the question.
So, Zach, does the 2005 version get the boot or the reboot?
This is very hard for me.
Oh, yeah.
Considering the fact that I'm a big Tim Burton fan.
Oh, who isn't?
I enjoy most of Johnny Depp's work. But I'm going to have to give it the boot.
No.
I'm giving it the boot. The classic movie had a campiness about it, but it also kept somewhat of a realism about it. And, it was one of the things where with some of the special effects that they had to do, they didn't have the advancements of technology that we have right now. So a lot of this had to be actually constructed and made real.
Right.
So it brought the movie that much more into life as compared to
everything's superimposed
or digitally enhanced. And it's just one of those things that, not only does it have a nostalgic feel about it, but you could reach out, like actors would reach out and touch things.
Right.
And you didn't have to sit there and be like, okay, well, you can tell that their hand is more defined than the scene behind it.
Well, the recent one, they had to imagine such things, unfortunately.
And, they had certain visualizations that you needed in the original one, like in the scene where Mike TV is sitting there in the television room. They've got the bar of chocolate and then Mike TV himself traveling across the top of the screen in those tiny little dots. Whereas the new one, they don't do stuff like that. They're just like, yeah, he's just transferring in the air. So it was one of those things where it just kind of brought more visualization to the table.
Right.
And, as campy as this one was, I found the 2005 version even more campy. It
kind of did. And I feel like it was part of the error at that time, too, where they just stuck so much gratuity into movies back in the aughts. Especially when CGI became such a mainstream in films, thanks to Star Wars Phantom Menace.
Jerks.
I know. It was just like, oh, we'll just clean it up and post and use CGI. Which they overindulged and just kind of ruined everything. They made everything cartoony.
Cartoony, they definitely brought a fake...
Very fake
aura about the industry now. And it's one of those things where it's like, they've gotten better at it.
Well, they're trying to go back to practical effects because people remember that being more real than CGI, which it is. But
they've actually had time to sit here and craft the art and sit here and refine it. I think if they had waited maybe another 10 years to do this movie, if they had done it about this year, I think they could have definitely done better.
I agree.
But it was one of those things where it was an opportune time to do it, and I do enjoy both movies. It's just that if I have to choose between the two, I'm going to lean more towards the classic 71 version.
That's interesting. I myself am fighting an inward battle because I like how the 2005 was more
to the book.
It was more to the book than the 1971 version was. And my main beef with the 1971 version, which is not the movie itself, but just how I was introduced to it back in the day. People would be quoting Willy Wonka left and right in the elementary and middle school to me, and I'd have no idea what the fuck they were talking about. So I guess it was like freshman year of high school, I finally watched it. And I was just like, hey, this is pretty funny. It's pretty, it's got this magic feel to it. And I was just like, why wasn't I introduced to it earlier? I have no idea. And because of that, I just held it in this, renownedness of it being just goofy. Something I wasn't really into. Like, I was huge into Star Wars and other science fiction stuff. And this film just wasn't in my, immediate interest to get into.
Well, also being introduced to the 71 version so late, it's one of those things where you kind of, I don't want to say you've lost your childlike demeanor, but it's definitely dulled a bit.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's to the point where you're watching this movie with more, let's say, more adult eyes.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you don't have the wonderment you may have as you first watch it as a child. So,
but you at least admit that it is a pretty good movie.
It is a pretty good movie, and I like.
See, this is why I say we should be able to do at least per season. We get 2 Switzerlands. You've already taken yours. I've tried to take mine.
I didn't take one.
You did too.
I ended up leaning more towards another movie than the other. And when it was Batman Begins, I went for Batman. And when it comes to now, I'm actually going to lean more towards the 2005 version starring Johnny Depp. Because, I don't know, it's just more goofier and just a little more, I think, to what Roald Dahl's vision was from his book.
More scrumdiddlyumptious to your taste.
Scrumdiddlyumptious to our taste. My taste. So, yep. I guess we have a split decision again.
It almost feels like we're doing this on purpose.
Almost. I just hate you.
I see. You just do this to spite me.
Yeah. Well, anyways, thanks for joining us on Das Reboot, our Willy Wonka edition. Our next episode, we're taking a holiday with our good friend Death. We're reviewing the film Death Takes a Holiday, which was made back in 1934 and remade into a TV movie in 1971. But what most of the audience doesn't know, that it was recently remade back in the 90s and retitled Meet Joe Black. So, join us for our next episode. I'm Stephen Jacoby.
I'm Zachary Lyle.
And have a scrum-diddly-umptious day.
A scrum-diddly-umptious day.
Yes, you say it so much better than I do. Thank you, Zach.
You're welcome.
All right.
It rolls off my tongue like gobstoppers.
Yum, yum, yum. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Just Reboot!